Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to High Top Sports Oregon. This show is brought to you by BetUS. Derek, thank you for taking the time to hop off of the parade after winning the championship this past weekend and joining us. We got Derek the Duck Zelmer with us today on an absolute high after calling his shot last week, saying I'm going all in. The Ducks are going to crush it. And by golly, they showed up and handled their business, and the talks for Dillion Gabriel on the Heisman campaign is up again. I've got my opinion on that. We'll go over that. We'll break down the Oregon State game. And then there's a player that's MIA for you guys. There is a bye week, so nothing to really talk about this week. UCLA the following week, but easy breezy week for you guys. And a good, nice little easy break after a big game against Oregon State. But talk to me how you're feeling so far, Derek, after your big W against Oregon State.
I mean, obviously, I'm feeling great. Like I said, I called my shot last week. I decided for Oregon Nation that the Ducks are back, and Dan apparently watches the show because he listened.
Clearly,
Right. We understand that. So yeah, I'm coming off a high. It's always nice to beat little brother. Got to remind their fans of their place. So that's always fun. One of my favorite parts after a nice little rivalry. But obviously now we're heading into the bye week, and I really hate the bye week. Now we got two of them in college football. So, it is what it is, man. I'm just going to ride my high for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, enjoy it. Look, this was a big win, and we talked about, too, where the spread was important for the Ducks to cover for the fans' sake of just looking like, hey, we are back. We are rolling again. And what we talked about, look, the offensive line I wasn't concerned about. I felt like things would click. It was the defense, and all of it was clicking on Saturday. You guys had the call-in show where you were able to talk about that a little bit. But Dillion Gabriel really shined as well. Who were some other key pieces that really kind of stood out to you on Saturday outside of Dillion? Because we're going to talk about Dillion separately in regard to the Heisman. But what were some other takeaways from that game that you liked on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the running game is something I feel very good about at this point. Jordan James, he's well on pace to averages 6 yards a carry. Behind the abysmal offensive line for the first 2 weeks was still being productive. This week, the line decided to put it together, and what do you know? He had a nice game. Jaden Lamar, who was a third-string running back, he had a big run. We got to see a little bit of Jay Harris, who's a D2 transfer from Northwest Missouri State. He got in there a little bit, and all of our running backs look good. So I'm very happy with that room in particular. I think if the offensive line continues to plateau and remain at this high level of play, I think the running game is going to be massive for the Ducks. And then on the defensive line, the man we're seeing right here, Bryce Betcher, I just realized he's rated the number 5 linebacker in the country, according to PFF, which, take that for what it's worth. But he is a former walk-on and not someone that we necessarily expected to have a massive impact last year. Obviously we saw that was the case where he started to crack that lineup and make some big plays. And then this year, obviously being an Oregon native, he really showed out in the Civil War. So he's one that I've been highly impressed with. And I think, him being able to step up for this Ducks defense is paying dividends for him because of the absence of a guy like Jeffrey Baza. Justin Jacobs, another linebacker, has been extremely quiet this year. In reality, the two linebackers we've been hearing the most from are Bryce Betcher and Devin Jackson, which these are two guys that we didn't necessarily project to have massive years this year. So that's really encouraging to know that, the depth is starting to step up, especially in the linebacking room.
I hate the fact that Florida let you guys down and allowed for Miami to steamroll us, because now they're sitting, not only are they sitting in the top spot or ahead of you at number 8 in the AP poll, but Cam Ward also sits at the top spot for the Heisman campaign, which we'll get into in just a moment. But Mizzou jumped you guys as well. I thought for sure after that big win that you may move up a spot or two. Again, these AP polls don't mean much, but Texas was able to jump Georgia after their big win, and Georgia struggled a little bit. I thought Oregon going into a hostile environment like Oregon State, because that was what I think people were looking for. You dropped Oregon 6 spots because they didn't win like you thought they should. Then they win like you think they should, and you don't return the favor. I think a little bias there against the Ducks. I'm sticking with you guys on that one. But look, like we all know, it doesn't matter at this very moment. But and even still, the seeding really doesn't matter anymore as much, even going to the playoffs, because rankings and seedings are not the same. It's completely different, because you can be ranked 11th but win your conference championship and be seeded number 2, 3, 4. So it's weird to think, again, how these rankings really lost their value. Again, it's going to help the decision, the conversation at the end for those last 6, 7 spots. So I understand that, or 8 spots. Yeah. So hopefully Oregon can get one. Again, they got UCLA in 2 weeks, unless I guess they just obliterate that football team and basically make them eliminate their program. I don't see you guys moving any spots unless Miami falls to USF this weekend, which could happen. Tennessee plays Oklahoma. I don't see them taking an L there. But Georgia plays Alabama in 2 weeks. So there's two teams right there that are in front of you. One of them is bound to fall back. So Oregon's going to slowly start creeping up. I think, again, it's going to come to a peak when Oregon plays Ohio State in just a few weeks. That should be where it all dials in. But let's talk about the Heisman odds. This show, again, is brought to you by BetUS. And when you use the code YouTube150, you get back 150% on your first two deposits up to $2,000. And these are the odds right now for Heisman's. Again, Cam Ward leads the way. He's the favorite as of now to win the Heisman. Then you've got behind him, you got Dillion Gabriel, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart is also one that's up there. Jackson Dart's tied with, actually, you can see Milroe and Dillion Gabriel. Quinn Ewers getting hurt last game made him fall dramatically. But you know who's also tied with Quinn Ewers? Arch Manning. They are sitting right around the same spot of favorite to win the Heisman. After one game, it was a great game. It was a great game. But that just kind of shows you these odds are just, they're so crazy and it's moving around so much. Carson Beck fell back a little bit. Obviously, he was an early favorite, but you're high on Dillion Gabriel. Like, he should be leading, or he's up there, but he's not leading.
Yeah, to be real honest, in terms of where he's at right now, I'm comfortable with where he's at just because of, the product he did put on the field. Well, not necessarily him, just the Ducks in general put on the field in the first 2 weeks. But the fact that I was just looking at it, completing 84% of his passes through three games, has yet to throw an interception. Sitting at 914 yards through 3 games, which is, absolutely not terrible. He's not turning the ball over. I'm very pleased with Dillion Gabriel, and what it seems like to me, I don't know, maybe you can provide an outside perspective just being, a Florida fan from what you're able to see, but it looked like Dillion Gabriel was significantly more comfortable in the pocket and just navigating the system as a whole over this last week. And I'm inclined to believe that if this just keeps trending in this positive direction, that eventually, Dillion Gabriel is going to take off. And if this remains consistent throughout the season, I don't see how he doesn't end up in New York at the end of the year, at a minimum, at the ceremony, not necessarily saying he should be the favorite at this point, but I do see a very clear path as to how he can find himself in New York come December.
Look, unfortunately, I feel like this award has turned into a stat award. And so when you look at the stats, Jackson Dart is crushing everybody. I think Jackson Dart's going to be a huge favorite to win this Heisman, given the schedule. Going to have a lot of big highlight games, as is Dillion Gabriel. But the other side of that is, look, there could be some games where he gets absolutely shut out, right? Look at the Georgias and whatnot. So, and they do play Georgia. So that could be a game that could really end his Heisman campaign. And I think that's why the odds are probably not in his favor at this very moment, because of the schedule that he has to face. Cam Ward has a clean slate. I mean, those guys could roll right into these to this. I'm not sold on Cam Ward, and that's not me being a hater. I think he's a phenomenal football player. I think they did great. He shut me up week 1, and so did Miami. I think they're going to get stunned. Okay, see you later. I think they're going to get stunned. Welcome back, Derek. Look, next time did I upset you? Did I say something?
Yeah, you insulted me, really. I just expected you to say Dillion Gabriel was the favorite, and we just leave it at that. So I decided I'd get out of here real quick, let you know how I was feeling.
I was like, God, I didn't think I said anything that bad. But look, somebody that we talked about on our main show, Kyle McCord, he's sitting second right now with 735 yards passing, averaging 367, the second most behind Jackson Dart. But he's only played 2 games. He's only played 2 games. He's not getting love because he's at Syracuse, but keep an eye on Kyle McCord. Keep an eye on Kyle McCord. Now, I told you before the show started, I got a bet on air that I think we've got to rock and roll with here. Travis Hunter is somebody that's not getting a lot of love. The guy's playing both sides of the ball, and he's playing all pro ball on both sides of the ball. Are you willing to make a bet that if Travis Hunter finishes ahead of Dillion Gabriel in the voting, that you wear a Travis Hunter jersey on the show?
I'm gonna be honest. That one would hurt my soul, but you know me. I'm down for it. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll wear what you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I haven't decided exactly who quite yet. I'm thinking we could get you a Miami jersey of some sort to, rock for a little bit. Yeah. Well, we can decide on the intricacies of that, but yeah, I think we could find another jersey to fit you in it when Dillion Gabriel finishes ahead of Travis Hunter, because the way I'm looking at it, to be real honest with you, is Travis Hunter's team is ass. Well, let's just call it what it is.
Sure.
And it's just, you go back and look at the Heismans, who's been finalists, who finds themselves in New York at the end of the year. It's typically not people who are playing on 6-win teams, if that.
Sure.
Matter of fact, I don't know if I can remember the last person that ended up in New York that played for a loser university. So we'll see.
Jaden Daniels was 9-3 last year with LSU. So you get if
Mhm.
Colorado finds a way to 7 or 8 games or 9, I think he should be in that conversation. But and look, I think the argument typically is those guys play are the quarterbacks. You're not gonna have a quarterback that plays for a poor team. Running backs, wide receivers, cornerbacks, you can argue maybe a little bit more because they don't affect the game as much. Look, I don't think he'll ever win it. It's basically a quarterback trophy as it is. But I mean, it's hard to look past what he's doing on both sides of the ball. But look, I really think Jackson Dart's going to be the biggest threat, just given he's been in the system for 3 years now. I think Cam Ward's going to take a fall back. Jalen Milroe looked really good on Saturday as well. It's going to be a good year. I think it's going to be probably one of the most exciting years we've had in a long time for the Heisman campaign, though. There's going to be some big time names. Hopefully, it comes down to that. Obviously, sometimes these things pull away. I feel like last year wasn't very exciting. Jaden Daniels wasn't the most electric person to win, but there just wasn't anybody else that ran away with it, right? So
Right.
I get it on that. Let's talk about some guys that I guess that are missing for the Ducks that you were wondering what's going on and where he should be.
Yeah, so I know a lot of Duck fans have been asking about Jurion Dickey, the former five-star receiver that finds himself in Eugene currently. Obviously, last year he was dealing with a slight meniscus issue, missed the vast majority of the year. We saw him in a few plays in the Fiesta Bowl against Liberty, and then once again we got this year, and all we heard from camp is, oh, he's showing out, he's coming into his own here. And then we're sitting here 3 games, and I think I've seen him on the field for 1 snap. And it leaves a lot of Ducks fans kind of scratching their head. What's going on here? Um, so I'm here to provide a little context for the people who are, scratching their heads, wondering where this man's at, which it's a valid question. Um, what I was reading today, it was from J Hop on 3 Oregon's representative there, and I was just kind of reading through his little analysis of what he believes was going on there, and I think it explains a lot actually. So last year, obviously, we mentioned he dealt with his meniscus tear, missed the vast majority of the year, missed the vast majority of the practices. Just wasn't able to participate fully and kind of get that development that we hope to have in his first year. So then we get the year 2, and all of a sudden this is exactly like his freshman year, right? I mean, in terms of just everything, running the full D1 gauntlet schedule throughout the week, now fully participating in practices. Also, just take a look at the Oregon wide receiver depth chart where obviously, you got guys like Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, Trayshawn Holden, Gary Bryant, who's projects to play a little bit more once he gets off his injury here. Kyler Casper's been seeing the field a little bit more. Justice Lowe. So, I mean, Oregon has just a wealth of riches at wide receiver right now. And I think that, people are still wondering, well, he was the number 2 wide receiver in the class last year. He was a former 5-star, shouldn't we be seeing him? But I don't think people are really considering the depth in front of him. I mean, at this point, obviously, you're not going to take Tez off the field for a Jurion rep. It just doesn't make sense. And the same with Evan Stewart, you're not going to do it. Same with Trayshawn Holden. And that's just the reality of the situation here. So I do think eventually what we see as he continues to ramp up his productivity, we will see him as he moves on, progresses throughout the year. But I don't think Duck fans should be expecting him to see him on the field full time. I know there are a lot of people right now who are, calling to see him. It's just, call it like it is. It's not going to happen this year. Hopefully he's able to stick around the program, once he goes through, decides what to do during the transfer portal in December. But, ultimately we do expect him to be a big part of this offense. I just don't think it's going to happen this year.
No reason to panic. Like you said, I think there's plenty of talent there, but obviously you like to hang on to these guys and be able to develop them. But with the transfer portal, it's tough anymore to see how guys will hold on and ride out. But look, there's a ton of talent on that football team. There's no reason you would want to leave because of the future where those guys are headed. And again, just watching those clips now with Dillion Gabriel, I thought he looked fantastic against Boise. I kind of mentioned that in the show, and I think he looked even better last week. And look, I'm not hating on him not winning the Heisman. I think he's going to be up there for sure. I think he's going to be one of those finalist guys. I just, I don't know. I think he could do it, to be honest with you. I think the schedule kind of bows to him. Michigan obviously doesn't look very daunting. I think he'll have big games against Ohio State and big games against USC this year. Play USC, right?
We don't. We don't have
play
US. So aside from Ohio State, I mean, it's Michigan who is clearly down right now. The other game a lot of people were worried about was that late November game at Wisconsin, and all of a sudden, they're missing a TVD for the year,
Yeah,
missing
you
their
could really
starting
stack
quarterback.
up on these stat charts real quick.
Yeah, and that's the thing. In Wisconsin's defense, they're very susceptible. That's just an example. We saw Washington. They played in the Apple Cup this past weekend against Washington State. Their defense looked,
They're done.
abysmal at
Yeah, they're
best.
shot.
Yeah, it's just the way the schedule stacks up for Oregon. There's a whole lot of games against the UCLA's, the Michigan States. I know Illinois is looking up right now, but let's be real. If we're a playoff team like we think we are, we should steamroll Illinois. That's just the reality of it. So I mean, Oregon has a very favorable schedule in terms of what Dillion Gabriel should be able to do, at least on the stat chart. He should be able to put up the numbers. Now, whether or not that actually happens, that's a whole different ballgame. This is college football. As we know, anything happens, but I think he's in a great spot to, end up in New York.
That's the unfortunate part. Like I said, it's become a stat award, and it's not necessarily who just plays the best, right? It has the biggest impact for their team because, in a way, I'm not saying that he wouldn't deserve the Heisman, but let's just kind of argue like a Jackson Dart or, a Jackson Dart plays well, will loses 2 games, maybe has some kind of 2 rough games, but, goes through more of a gauntlet of a schedule. You got to take that into consideration. I don't think that, again, Jaden Daniels won it last year to me. He won it against Florida. Like, 500 yards all purpose. Like, that wasn't really a Heisman game, but it was for the voters at home. But look, good stuff. Bye week, easy week for the Duck for you to be able to come. Bye weeks, they kind of suck, but they're also nice at the same time. This one seems a bit early. Usually it's nice to have it. Florida has 2 this year as well. Because of the leap year is where it's coming from. It's my understanding. I don't think it's going to be consistent.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just because there's a leap year. That's why there's 2. Now, I don't know if that maybe because of the playoffs, but this happens every leap year apparently. I found this out like a couple months ago. Just the way that the schedule kind of falls. I don't know. Maybe because we didn't add a game, right? And the playoffs really shouldn't make that much of an impact of the regular season. So it's every 4 years we have 2 buys because of the schedule.
I mean, that makes sense. Originally, because we had Hawaii on the schedule for week 0 this year. Originally, that game ended up getting canceled, but that was my understanding as to why we had gotten that second week bye. And then I, obviously came to the realization a little bit later that everybody has one. And now I'm hearing the leap year thing, and that's news to my ears too. So I'm learning a lot on this show tonight.
Yeah, that's look, that's what I know for us. That's why it is this way, anyways. Because again, our bye is typically before Georgia. We have a bye after Mississippi State, which is a game. So we have week 5 and then a week like 8 or something like that. So, anywho, boys and girls, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you guys enjoy this kind of content. This show is brought to you by BetUS. I'm Sheldon. That's Derek the Duck Zelmer. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace and love, baby.